His army conquered many forts all across the western coast of Scotland in bloody battles that have been lost to history. The Picts defeated, fled east over the mountains, while others stayed behind, intermarrying with the Gaels and adopting Irish language and culture. He conquered vast lands stretching from County Antrim in Ireland in the south across the remote islands and mountains of the Highlands as far north as Fort William. He established his capital at the old hill fort of Dunad, which grew large and rich with the power of his new realm. He was crowned the first king of the Gaelic kingdom of Dal Riata, and his heirs would be crowned on that hill for generations to come. His descendants would go on to be kings of all Scotland in the centuries to come, and many consider him the founder of the Scottish nation. Thousands of Gaelic Irish crossed the sea to settle in Dal Riata, giving the land a new name. Scoti being the Latin name for Gaels, Scotland meaning the land of the Gaels. The new kingdom grew to new heights in power. They occupied the old fortresses of the Picts. The capital of Dunad strategically occupied the center of Fergus Moore's new land. The hill fort Dunolly guarded the north. The oceanside promontory fort of Dunaverry in the south of the Kintyre Peninsula, and Dunseverick Castle near the mythological Giant's Causeway, was the kingdom's seat of power in Ireland. The Gaels also divided themselves among several clans or kin groups. According to the Sencus Ferin Alban, or The History of the Men of Scotland, a medieval Irish text from the 10th century, Dal Riata was controlled by three main clans at this time. The most powerful clan, the Senel na Gabrain, or the Kindred of Gabran, ruled over the Kintyre Peninsula, Isles of Bute and Arran, and the land of Argyll colored in blue, and was by far the most powerful clan, tracing their bloodline to Fergus Moore, founder of the kingdom. Senel Noengusa, the Kindred of Oengus, ruled over the large Isles of Islay and Jura in orange. Senel Loerne, the Kindred of Lorne, controlled the northern land of Lorne and the Isle of Mull. Although where exactly this clan's territory stopped, and where Pictland began, is not certain to modern historians. The Gaels thrived in their new lands on the mountainous edge of Europe. They brought with them the medieval Irish pastoral way of life. They drew their wealth from cattle, unlike the peoples of mainland Europe. Gold or silver were not a common form of currency in Ireland and Scotland, but livestock, namely cattle, were traded instead. Their diet was dominated by dairy, such as cheese and butter, but was supplemented with cereals such as oats. Berries, apples, and nuts foraged from the land. They also fished from the bountiful fisheries of the bays and seas of their coastal domain. Cattle were too valuable to slaughter, so pork was much more common instead. They also hunted wild animals, as the forests and mountains were rich with game like the now extinct moose and wild boar, as well as the still plentiful red deer. Wolves roamed all over the land alongside the elusive lynx and rare brown bear that would both be hunted to extinction in the following centuries. Fergus Moore, now known as Fergus the Great, would die in the year 501, only a few years after arriving in his new realm. His son Domangart, MacFergus, otherwise known as Domangart, son of Fergus, would take the throne, but his rule was cut short in 507, with the cause of his death unknown. His son, Comgall mac Domangart, was crowned king next. He would found a new clan, Sinel Comgail, Kindred of Comgall, and his descendants would rule the land of Cowal on the eastern border of the kingdom and the islands of Bute and Arran. The descendants of Comgall would become the fourth clan of Dal Riata, and would counterbalance the previously dominant clan Gabran. Comgall would die sometime in the 540s or 50s. His son King Conall mac Comgall would convert to Christianity. The king would grant St. Columba the island of Iona in the north. The saint built a great monastery there in 563, and he would go on to almost single-handedly convert Scotland to Christianity from his base inside Dal Riata. St. Columba was loved by both the Gaels of the west and the Picts in the east. King Conall would ally himself with the High King of Ireland Colman Mar of the Kingdom of Meath. The annals of Ulster say that a
sea fleet was brought by Colman Beg, son of Diarmuid, and by Conall, son of Comgall, chief of Dal Riata, to the islands of Seal and Islay, and they carried off many spoils from them.
Dal Riata, known by many as the Sea Kingdom, being made up of many remote islands, had a mighty fleet of warships. They had many large timber-long ships similar in design to later Viking ships, manned by skilled teams of oarsmen. This war fleet was capable of long voyages, striking as far north as the Orkney Islands in the North Sea and far into the Irish Sea in the south. The kingdom had an efficient and organized system to recruit and train oarsmen. Every 20 households were required to provide 28 oarsmen for the king's navy. Conall had 7 sons, and the annals report that his son Dunchad would die leading the army of the clan Gabran into battle. Conall would die in 574, and with the coming of the new king Iadán mac Gabrain, Dal Riata would enter its golden age, conquering new lands and becoming immensely powerful. Iadán, who was consecrated by the blessed Saint Columba, inherited a kingdom under siege from all sides. Brede, the first king of the Picts, threatened the land of the Gaels, whilst the bordering kingdom of Dal Naraidi threatened Aidan's lands in Ireland. He turned to Saint Columba, whose monastery lay under the protection of Dal Riata. Columba, descended from Irish royalty, arranged a meeting between Iadán and his relative Iad mac Ein Muirech, of the northern Uí Níl High King of Ireland. Iadán's predecessor Conall had made an alliance with the king of the southern Uí Níl in the past. They met at the modern village of Limavady east of Derry in 575. They resolved to make war on their common enemy in Dal Naraidi of Ulaid. The king of Dal Riata and the High King of Ireland marched to war together, defeating King Beitan, securing the safety of Idaon's Irish lands. He turned his sights to the north, making war on the Picts. His war fleet made expeditions far and wide, conquering the Isle of Skye and vast lands along the western coast, attacking the Orkney Islands in the far north. He then marched his army inland, attacking the Picts living around the River Forth, north of modern-day Glasgow. Iadán had become the most powerful king of Dal Riata, and his Irish-speaking kingdom grew to become the most powerful in Scotland. Then the Anglo-Saxons, the ancestors of the modern English, invaded Scotland, conquering as far north as modern Edinburgh. Dal Riata marched to war against the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Bernicia. The mighty king Iadán mac Gabrain of Dal Riata would meet the Saxon king Ethelfrith of Bernicia at the Battle of Degsastan in 603, somewhere in southern Scotland. The smaller Anglo-Saxon force would defeat the Gaels in a long and bloody battle. Iadán's army would retreat. The kingdom of Bernicia's invasion of southern Scotland continued, but they would kill the Saxon king's brother Theobald in the devastating battle. They would stagnate in the following years, with the great king Iadán would die of old age several years later. The kingdom of Ulaid, who Dal Riat's former enemies of Dal Naraidi were a part of, crossed the sea to Scotland to attack the Anglo-Saxons in Bernicia. They would besiege Bamburgh Castle in modern England alongside soldiers from Dal Riata. In an almost forgotten Irish invasion of England, they would enter into many years of war in Ireland and Britain. They would suffer several devastating defeats on land and at sea at the hands of the Celtic kingdom of Strathclyde to the south of Dal Riata, and they fought alongside their allies, the northern Uí Níl, in many devastating defeats in Ireland. By the 9th century, the descendants of Fergus the Great had lost their Irish homeland. They would fight a losing war against the Picts over the following years, and over this period, the Gaels and Picts intermixed often, with the Irish language and way of life spreading all over Pictland. The Pictish language would be almost entirely replaced by Irish by the 10th century. And over the next several hundred years, the Irish language in Scotland formed into the distract language known as Scottish Gaelic, which is still spoken until the modern day. The first king of the Scots. Kenneth MacAlpin would be born of mixed Gaelic and Pictish ancestry, tracing his lineage back to Fergus Mór, founder of Dal Riata. His descendants would rule Scotland until 1707, and his descendants would intermarry with the monarchs of England who rule Scotland, the land of the Gaels, into the modern day.